the good and the bad. So if you'll recall, just a few weeks ago, I think I stood right here at this dais, and we talked a little bit about property tax. My opinion and outlook hasn't really changed much. It is coming. I would remind the commission, if you had not seen, I think the House Select Committee on Property Tax has meeting times next week on the 22nd and 23rd. I do think that they are going to continue to work through the Rubik's Cube of what is property taxes and how do we deliver quote unquote relief without, maybe without derailing the entire, train in the process. I would also say I am encouraged that there are a number of members of the Select Committee on Property Tax who are from rural communities. And I think that should be noted, and I think that should be encouraging that while it may not be a specific Wakulla County voice, it's a voice that looks real similar to what a Wakulla County voice would look like, who understands that there is a difference between how things work in a rural community versus how they work in a more densely populated urban community. So I think that is a good thing. I would also, share with the commission that the leaders of the House Select Committee have been very proactive in reaching out and asking questions. And so I want to be clear, I do think that the House is really working in earnest to come up with something that threads the needle. I think it's a very difficult job to do. We have talked about it both publicly, and I know offline and individually we have talked about it. So this is not an easy task before us, but I do think they are working in earnest. So I don't know that I have a lot of substance to give you yet, other than we all know that it's coming. I feel more confident now, and this is not super secret information, but I feel more confident now that we are going to see something that really focuses on primary homesteaded properties. I think that it's probably a stretch to think it would get to second, third, or investment residential properties because they are not homesteaded. I do not know what else they'll do. We could see a combination of an age type stair step in addition to a primary residential elimination, and I think they're working through that. But I would also say that they're working through how the property appraiser and how DOR gives guidance for other classes of property, special classes of property, including commercial, industrial, residential. All of those have a value, and all of those are taxed in their own way through guidance from either statute and or DOR rule to the property appraiser. And I'm sure if the property appraiser was here with us today, he could give a lecture on how to do all of those, should we be so inclined to hear it. But just understand that there are different taxing matrix that are used in those different classes of property, and everything is on the table. Yes, sir.
Do you find the mindset is the goal is how do we offset these taxes, or is the mindset of that's just surplus, the county doesn't need that money, let's just cut it?
So that's a very good question. I want to be very thoughtful in how I answer this so that I don't get us all in trouble in the sense that I don't want to give someone the wrong impression, whether they're sitting here in the audience or listening. So I do think that there are very clear examples of where maybe a local government wasn't as mindful as I personally would have been, or maybe you, Commissioner Thomas, would have been sitting in the decision-making process. And I think we have to expect that those are going to be the examples that reinforce the mission. I would also say that I have largely not seen a legislator who is in favor of property tax reform who is out to stick it to, so to speak, especially a rural community, right? Like I think that everybody has a case, right? Everybody has an argument to make, and how much of your ad valorem goes to first responders, or how much it goes to infrastructure, or this or that. And everybody's a little different, everybody's a little the same. I would say that to this point, the way that the legislature have indicated they're approaching this is somewhat different for rural communities versus urban communities. But I do think, to your underlying question, I do think the examples of where maybe someone didn't make, from an independent observers, the best choices with those tax dollars, those are going to be the examples that we're going to get asked, well, why didn't you do it? Or what would you have done? Or, I mean, I think they all work together. And again, maybe I'm dancing a little bit, but I don't know that it's a straightforward question. Well, but it's not necessarily a straightforward
Been in
question.
Tallahassee too long.
So
My mother would agree. Yes, sir, Commissioner.
my understanding is whatever comes out of this is going to go before the voters. And,
Some will, some will not.
okay?
Yep.
And so what I'm hoping is if you just stop everyone on the street and said, you want your taxes cut, the answer is almost uniformly yes. That's an easy one. But will that include the mechanics of, okay, what do we do then? You know, is this just going to be, all right, figure it out, counties, or increase other taxing authority somewhere else, or?
So, and again, I think we discussed this last time around, but it's good for a reminder. There are certain things which the legislature can do by general law as it relates to your ability to assess fees or your ability to assess taxes or do the things you do. As it relates specifically to ad valorem tax, as it relates specifically to tangible property tax, those things are contained within the Constitution. And so anything there would require going to the ballot. I assume that you are probably correct. 10 out of 10, maybe 12 out of 10 in the state of Florida, if you ask them, do you want to lower your property taxes, their vote is yes. What we have done, what has been done in years past is that if we are going to go to the ballot with something that we presume on its face would pass, then we would maybe ask the legislature, or we would ask the legislature affirmatively to go ahead and create implementing bills. And so that is very clear before the ballot it is even printed that we have a mechanism to implement. And that mechanism may include some portion of money from the state, some other mechanism to help hold harmless or recoup some of that. Yeah, and again, that is not an uncommon process to go through. It would be voted on by the legislature in the affirmative, and it would be just connected in name and in number to that constitutional amendment, and kind of, it would be caveated that upon passage of said amendment, this is the mechanism the legislature believes for implementation. Is that a more direct answer with less dancing?
Well, I know we're all trying to polish up our crystal ball and see what's going to come out of it, so we'll
Well,
see.
Jim, do you think and Ralph, you're up there a lot as well, do you think that there should be, it may not be enough information yet, but at some point in time, do you think there should be at least an official position from our board sent to the legislators? Would that, I mean, not that it was going to make a huge difference, but yet at least we'll have sounded our position.
So I think that.
We don't know our position because
No. I mean, there's kind of two steps to this, right? Like, as a position, this board may feel very strongly that we support looking at property taxes, but we'd want to do it in a way that we were not having to rob from Peter to pay Paul to make up the gap, or something like that. That may be arguably vanilla because we don't know what we're shooting at, but as a general principle,
Right.
we too agree that homeowners should get relief, but we are also mindful that we don't want to be left holding the bag. That may be a place we want to be. We may also choose to say, let's let some proposals come out, and then as FAC, as Small County Coalition, and others start to refine their position, we may choose to sign on to their points or use some of their points for our own standalone letter. Regardless of the path the board wishes to take, I do think it bears bringing up at our delegation meeting that, hey, we're watching, and generally we're kind of within these guardrails. Here's where the county feels like we can be. And so maybe that was 3 steps to a one answer question, but I mean, I think you have options. It's hard to write a letter in a position on something when you don't know what you're shooting at.
I just want to make sure we're all cognizant of that. At some point in time, the board needs to step up and say, But you're right, it may be as this thing, but that's up to you guys.
And to this point, regardless, and I have the unique hat of wearing obviously some local government hats, but also some business industry hats. And the point has been, I'm happy to sit down and chat with you about what you're thinking. Would love to bounce ideas off of you. Here's generally our concern. I don't want the road to happiness to have some pitfalls that we can't climb out of, right? And so I'm always happy to work with trying to get somebody from point A to point B. And so I've been kind of vanilla to that point, but certainly enjoying the conversation.
And I think you're right. I think, we're looking at the revenue replacement, if you get rid of it, but also one of the bigger issues is we lose the ability to bond. That to me, that's bigger than anything else. You're completely losing your voice as a citizen. So.
Well, and again, not to belabor, but you bring up a very good point when you have this discussion. If we're going to put something forward that removes a portion of ad valorem, and a local government already has a bond outstanding based on an amount of ad valorem, you have created an inconsistency that may be a problem. Like those are one of those things you have to think through, because you went and got your bond based on X ad valorem. And now if ad valorem is X minus 20%, what does that do to your bond? And do you have to now renegotiate? Do you have to, all of those things matter. Yeah. Because we're not static. It's not a standstill target.
Well, it's not as people don't understand. It's not as simple as just getting rid of it.
Could that call a bond due? Could the lender say?
I mean, I suppose it could. I guess it would depend. It would depend on how much you have bonded.
Change your terms. It's like changing your.
Yeah.
It'd be a mutual contract, and the bondholders would have a cause of action against everyone who was responsible for it.
I mean,
because you have to have the bill. That's if it's a GO bond, if it's a general obligation bond. If it's a bond that does not pledge your taxing power and it's just other non-ad valorem revenues, then you'd probably be okay, unless there was some way to show that it even impacted that.
Really hit school boards.
Yeah, it could. Absolutely, it could. So again, I think, again, to your point, it's not simple.
No.
And again, I will give credit where credit is due, and that they are really trying to work through all of that. And again, there may not be one silver bullet answer here, but certainly recognizing the complexity of the issue is a good start to this, because it is not as simple as a post or a talking point. So, other questions, comments on property tax? I have a feeling we're going to talk about this several more times in the next 6 months.
If we have to take a position, we'll say we do support the governor's plan to offset our revenue.
The sprinkle.
With budget dust.
With budget dust, sprinkle. That part. Is this going to be a I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Is this going to be like a 2027 crystal ball-ish with regards to pros and cons coming out with the planning, you think?
I think it's a faster track than that. I mean, that's why they're doing committee meetings now. I could expect, in fact, I would expect that first week or second week of session that the House is sending probably some proposals to the Senate in this vein, getting them ready for the November 2026 election.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the big election. We have all of our cabinet up. We have half the Senate, all the House, all the merry-go-round of people being elected. And so I think the goal is to have these on the 2026 ballot.
Thank you.
All right. On a more positive